I'm Wilson Lai, and you're listening to Deep Cut. On Deep Cut, we compare a director's most popular film with a personal favorite chosen by one of us. We also discuss that director's life and career to bring in context that helps us view their movies as they may want us to. If you're enjoying the show, please rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. Better still, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or comment on our episodes directly on Spotify. If you'd like to share a message with us, feel free to drop us an email at hello@deepcutpod.com. You can also find us at deepcutpod.com to find links to our socials, Discord, and Patreon. If you're tuning in, welcome to the first episode on our long series of Hong Kong International Film Festival interviews that I conducted this year. It was truly a pleasure interviewing all these directors, and I can't wait for you to listen to them as they come out over the next few weeks. So, today's interview that you're going to be listening to is a very, very special one because this is a director, a film editor that I've been a fan of for a long time, ever since we were discovering the works of Eric Rohmer. This is, of course, Mary Stephen, the Hong Kong-born film editor and director. And she was here at the festival this year to locally premiere her new documentary, Palimpsest, The Story of a Name, which is about her own journey of finding the source of why she, a Chinese woman, has a white last name and sort of digging deep into the cultural conversations that brings, but also going into her family's history in Hong Kong and beyond. It was a wonderful interview where we talked about her work as a director and also her work as an editor. So please stay tuned to the back half where I ask some questions about Eric Rohmer if you are a Rohmer fan. Without further ado, here's my interview with Mary Stephen. I am sitting here today with one of the legends of cinema right here, Mary Stephen, who is here at this festival this year presenting her new documentary, Palimpsest, The Story of a Name. And first of all, thank you so much. As a big fan of your work, editing work, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so in this interview, I think I want to sort of start by talking about the documentary and then maybe finish off by talking about some of your editing work.
Yes.
So how does it feel bringing your film to screens in Hong Kong? A lot of your documentary film takes place in this city. And how does it feel finally bringing this film to its home?
Yes. Yes, indeed, because the film is about my family and it's about my family history. And a lot of it is made up of the footage that were filmed by my father here between 1949 and 1962. So, yes, it's very strange to see the real places. I mean, I come back to Hong Kong quite regularly, but now after editing this for almost 2 years, it's like I come back when I come back to Hong Kong now, it's like I can't see the Hong Kong now. I keep seeing it like the way it was. Yeah, it's very strange. And I feel that I look forward to knowing the reactions of Hong Kong audience because it's a special film for Hong Kong. Yeah.
Has there been anything that surprised you from the audience reactions over the last few days?
I think what surprised me is the reaction from the younger audience, because I didn't think that it would speak to them as much, since a lot of it has to do with the older Hong Kong kind of thing. But so it still resonates with the younger audience. So I'm very glad about that. That there's something universal about this. Yeah.
Yes. I can't speak for other young people, but I myself found your film to be so remarkable. As also someone that, well, my mom's Filipino and my dad's Chinese, and I sort of struggle with that identity, not really fully grasping Cantonese, going to international school, going to university abroad. So I found a lot of parallels there with your film. And I want to ask about like this twist that you sort of bake into the film. And I was wondering if you always envisioned when you were thinking about this film to not tell it in a clear, linear fashion.
Yes, I mean the film started like I was telling last night that the film started almost 20 years ago when this Hong Kong writer friend of mine told me that Virginia Woolf's maiden name is Stephen, and right away my thought was, oh, I want to make a fake documentary about this. And that started it like that. So it, in the very beginning, I wanted to play with the idea of fact and fiction kind of thing. And so it's always been the form of the film that intrigued me, how to put it together so that it could be something rather than a straightforward documentary.
Yeah. So, I was watching a short film of yours yesterday called Labyrinth,
yes.
where you sort of have an action and then you sort of rewind and
yes.
do the action again. And that sort of, I drew connections between that film and this documentary, although very different.
Yes. I think I've always liked to play with form, but it probably has to do with my film education, because when I went to school, it was communication arts in Canada, and we were taught a lot of the experimental filmmakers of the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Maya Deren.
Yeah. So I got. I mean, I was sort of really submerged in that culture.
That's awesome. And I want to ask particularly about your skill set as an editor, and how did it affect your approach to making a film like Palimpsest? Like, was the process of like gathering footage or like combing through stuff, putting stuff together, maybe making a timeline? How did your skills as an editor affect this?
I think that, Palimpsest is the latest one, but even the earlier ones that I made, that I directed, they were already like really films that depended a lot on editing. So whether I knew it or not, I was always making films of my own that were editors' films, and I couldn't have done it. I mean, for example, this one, I couldn't have directed another editor to edit this film. It was, I mean, for me, editing is writing. And I write my films when I'm editing. And I already told my partners in the beginning that I couldn't give them a complete outline of the film because I don't know what it would be like until I start cutting it. Yeah.
I wonder how you think about that in terms of the narration. This movie is very heavy in narration, right? So did you not really have that script set in place until you had stuff cut together already?
I had a few notions. I had a few things that I wanted to say, like here and there. I would jot down a few lines, kind of thing, but not. The real narration came while I was cutting, and I would start like doing very late night. I work very much at night. I would start, recording sounds into the timeline. That sort of just rough sounds, and then I would start rewriting those comments and start putting together the narration.
You didn't really have a full outline when you were coming up with the film, but I guess it has very distinct sections. You sort of bring us on a journey, first from Australia to Hong Kong to there. You have a little brief section in Wuhan where you talk about this Julian Bell. Did you have those big concrete chunks set in place before you went about?
I knew what chunks there were. I knew there's going to be a Wuhan section. I knew there was going to be a Nanjing section.
Yes.
for the Hong Kong section, I was less clear. I knew that there would be Hong Kong. And to be honest, in the beginning, we shot a lot of things, contemporary things in Hong Kong that I didn't use, because when we started to digitize my father's footage, I realized that the Hong Kong section was going to be largely going to be made up of my father's films.
And that footage that you talk about is so incredible. I feel like I do watch a lot of films that are set in the past, but not a lot of documentary footage of Hong Kong at that time. And it's really stunning to see what it was like in an era where I wasn't there. And I was wondering, do you have a lot of footage from that you left on the cutting room floor? Is there a lot of more of your dad's films that didn't see the film?
Yes, we definitely couldn't use everything. I mean, I know that there were at least like 13 to 15 hours of films altogether. And I made some selections that unfortunately there were some things that we couldn't use. Yeah.
So did you digitize all of them though, or you only digitized the ones that
would digitize everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that process like? I'm not really sure. Yeah, how these are done. Yeah,
it was. I mean, we just gave them to a lab, but it was 2 labs because part of the films were in Canada still with my sister, and part I had already shipped to France, and so we had a French lab that did an absolutely amazing job. I mean, that somehow, of course, my father kept them very well because it was very well preserved, and he hardly showed it. And once in a while, he would have checked on it because we found in the boxes little pieces of paper saying checked certain date and stuff. He was maniacal about all this.
A film preservationist.
Yes. And then the Canadian lab also did a wonderful job of the other batch of films. So all in all, then we got this back, all these digital files. And then it was then that I started to, because I saw some bits and pieces of them before, but never the whole thing. And I discovered so many things. Yeah, like the footage of myself as a baby, touching those film cans, that I discovered while I was editing the film.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. Do you feel like this process, this might be a tough question, but do you feel like the process of making this documentary, going through your father's old journals, watching these home movies, and sort of coming up with this story for this film changed the way that you remember or you think about your own parents?
Probably. I may have had some more insight, some other insight that I did talk about in the film, like when I was in the film, when I was questioning my mother about where her voice was, that I think that it came out from seeing all that. You see, especially that these are all silent footage. You see these people doing their live, acting out their life, because I remember in my memory, I remember how things were set up. I remember the movie lights that he set up and having the camera all the time. That I remember. But now that in our real life, the way that we live, now I think about it and I think, how can we live with that kind of being constantly mise en scène, being constantly directed kind of thing? So I have that insight, and then of course, going behind that, then I start to wonder who were really these people, who were really my parents. I mean, what did they feel? What did they think of?
Because I feel like this film and your film, A Very Easy Death, paint, I guess, maybe different sides of your view of your own mother. So maybe like, because A Very Easy Death came before this film, like a bit before this film, right? So do you feel like you've changed from that moment of making that short film?
Yes, A Very Easy Death was really a sort of taking care of my own grieving process about my mother's passing.
Yeah.
And that this is like, 40 years later, something like that, this one. And it's like coming to terms with something, and it's like in terms of having having misgivings about my parents. I mean, everybody has misgivings about their parents, right? And I mean, in our case, it was more like misgivings about my father's certain behavior, kind of thing, and then questioning, my mother's motivations or how her life was in all this. So there's like more compassion for both of them, I think.
Yeah. I want to dig a little deeper into your relationship with this city.
Yeah.
And do you feel like your identity, as much as you are living in Canada or moved to France and live there, do you feel like your identity as a Hong Konger is still there and maybe even strengthened by the making of Palimpsest?
I think in a way, yes, but what would that be defined? As what is a Hong Konger kind of thing? Would I be a Hong Konger as an ex-Hong Konger, like Hong Kong as I remember it in the 60s kind of thing? I think there will always be a part of Hong Kong in me, because every time, of course, I land here and it already feels like home kind of thing, but it is not. And I often say to friends and people that I have a love-hate relationship with Hong Kong, but you always do. You always have a love-hate relationship with the things that you're closest to, and so it's like after 2 hours, the first 2 hours you just want to embrace everything, do everything. After 2 hours, you say, "Oh, this is a city that's not made for human beings." It's too crowded, it's too noisy, and everything.
Yeah.
And so it's complicated.
Simple answer says a lot as well. Are you still continuing your practice of shooting here in the city, like even now?
Yes, I can't stop. I shoot everything. I mean, I shoot a lot. I record a lot of sounds and so on. And now also that after making this film, actually, I even do more, because it's been so exciting to make this film in terms of the technique, because I was editing it on DaVinci, and that you can do so much. You can stabilize shots.
Yes, you can. Yes.
You can slow them down, and I can use things that I never thought could be used.
Yeah.
So now it encourages me to shoot even more.
Yeah. I had actually a question about that, because I'm assuming that when you were starting to work as an editor, you were editing on Steenbecks, or I also went to film school, so I've had my fair share of I don't know, problems with 16 millimeter footage on a Steenbeck. But how have you navigated this jump from editing physically to editing digitally?
Well, that was a big transition. At that time, there were a lot of film editors that went out of a job. And actually, it was a wave. I mean, in terms of where I was in France already. But in terms of that, then at a certain time, after a whole wave of digital editors came in, the film editors came back in, because that they realized that the digital editors, they may have had the technique, but they didn't have the film language. And then they brought back the film editors, and some of them had assistants who would manage the technical side. But I had the advantage of being a Hong Konger, the Hong Konger who are technique oriented. So I was always into like techniques and geeking about things. And so that's never stopped. So I went into digital very, very easily.
You jumped really, you jumped really quite early.
Yes. But that's very lucky, because a lot of film editors from my era didn't make the jump, or had to do it with difficulty. Yeah.
I would love to talk more about your film, but I think with the interest of time, I think it's I would like to move on, because our podcast, we have covered the films of Eric Rohmer before. We have 3 episodes on his films. Unfortunately, they were films that he made before you came on as an editor. But we've talked about The Green Ray, we've talked about Love in the Afternoon, and we also have talked about Boyfriends and Girlfriends, which is one of my favorites. And I want to talk about your relationship with Rohmer and how did that start? How did you find each other as a collaborative duo?
It's so weird. Again, it's luck. I mean, like you can say it's karma or luck. I mean, I was in France for a graduate program of filmmaking, and then I was very disappointed because it wasn't about practical filmmaking. It was about theory. And so I dropped out of the film to make my first film, Shades of Silk, that was showing here. And at that time, but I had one professor in that program that we could go to listen in was Eric Rohmer. He was teaching once a week, and I went to his class. And when I dropped out of the American program, I went to see him to help us with Shades of Silk, with the budget. And he kindly invited me to his office, and he was rehearsing Percival, I think, at the time. And they let me sit in every day in his office. And so by the time we did the Make Shades of Silk, he came to the editing room and looked into, because he was interested in every kind of young filmmaking process. And so that kind of curiosity really stayed with me to today, to be curious about everything, to be open about everything. And then I was making my second film, and he helped me with the script. I was writing in English. I always write in English. And he translated it into French and coached me with dialogues and stuff. And I mean, from then on, we really became friends. And it wasn't until he started. I had a cameo role in the Aviator's Wife. That he was yes, because he hired me to be Cécile de Gougy's assistant, and actually gave me a cameo role.
Yes, I love the Aviator's Wife.
Yeah. And so and after that, he because I wanted to stay in France, he helped me that way to hire me as somebody in his team. And then when Cécile had retired, by that time I had gone off to live in another city. I had got married. I had 3 children, and then when I came back to Paris, the other editor he had been working with was busy when he started Winter's Tale. So he asked me if I wanted to take over. And that was it. Since then, we just started working together.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but maybe we could talk about the Tale of 4 Seasons, those films. And I wonder what was it like editing those films? They are, I guess, quite relatively straightforward compared to the way that you make your films. What things did you learn from looking at and cutting these films?
Discipline, probably. Yes, just an economy of means. I really learned from there then how to save time and be clear about your vision. And quite often when I teach now, I just this is the advice that I give to students. Think about what you're going to shoot first. Think about your structure. Think about the way that you're going to put them together. The more you think beforehand, the more you save money, because you don't waste a lot of time in those days. We were editing in film. We had to do it in the editing room, and it cost money. And so the less time we spend in the editing room, the better it would be. So we did everything in terms of having either VHS tapes or later on DVDs. We would look through the rushes first and start to do paper edit before we would actually get into the editing room and edit on film. That way, there's a minimum of time to rent the room.
Yeah.
Of course, nowadays with digital, everybody shoots a lot, everybody edits for a long time, and so on, which doesn't always make better films.
Very true. So would you say that his shooting to cutting ratio, I know a lot of editors talk about it in terms of that, did he not really shoot too much to make the cutting easier for you?
That's why he was a nightmare for his actors. Because sometimes he would think the first take is good. He would say, "Okay, that's good." Yeah, and the actors beg him for another take at least, and we would also say, at least another take for security.
Yes.
So I don't know what his shooting ratio really was. 2-1 is almost the thing.
Yeah. That's quite extreme.
Yeah, it's very extreme. Yeah.
Yeah. Going from something as sort of carefully plotted and, I don't know, worked through as The Tale of Four Seasons, at least what it comes out to me, to moving on to something a little more fun and playful like The Adventures of Rosette. I wonder how that process was different, like a little more collaborative or with Rosette. And how did you find working on that film?
He gave a lot of freedom to, for example, Rosette was made by Rosette. I mean, it was written by Rosette. So he would, Rohmer, one of the amazing things about him is that although we think of him as the great master, he was very respectful of young talent, of everybody around him. Rosette's films were Rosette films, and he would give her the freedom of writing them and of putting them together. He would ask her, and for our cutting, he would also ask me what I feel about each scene, each cut, and so on. He was not a dictator, and that is quite amazing. Like the way, the more I get into editing, like sort of more experience, the more I realize how precious that is.
Yeah. So, for example, that film, was Rosette also with you in the cutting booth and sort of giving you direction and helping to shape the edit of the film as well as the writing?
So she wrote the whole thing, and then she decided to, the shooting was also that she kind of managed it, directed it, kind of thing with Eric's help, of course, but basically they really shone through. They were really with the light of Rosette. I mean, it's like really the character of Rosette is the lightness, the innocence, and so on. It's all Rosette. That's not Rohmer. It's just Rosette. Yeah.
I want to go to your identity, right? You say that maybe in your film, maybe your last name helped you get your foot in the door. And I just want to ask about your experience, especially with working on those Rohmer films, because they are in this world that are full of white Europeans, to put it bluntly. How did you feel working as an Asian woman in that world? And to what you've been saying, you were really highly respected, but did you feel how did you feel being, I don't know, a woman of color there?
I think that at that time, it wasn't, we were not so aware of that. And that is sort of part of the problem, actually, because nowadays, like we analyze, we define it much more, this, and then we fight for, being seen, being heard much more. And at that time, we were the silent minority or silent majority, whatever. And I always say that at that time that I was working in the French film industry, I didn't see anybody of color, especially women. The only ones that you see, and I looked at a film lately of the late 70s French film on TV, and it's true that on the credits, the only person that's not a European name is the makeup department. It's always a Vietnamese name. There were Vietnamese women being the maquilleurs, and that's the only thing, the only people. And so it really did start me thinking, what if, would I have been accepted, as Mary Chan, like a montage Mary Chan.
Yes.
So that would be so weird. I mean, nowadays, in the American films, of course, you have Chans everywhere.
Yes,
but,
yes.
but not in those days. So, and even today, I feel a sort of a distance. It's very strange. It's very strange, and especially in Asia. It's not so much in Europe, especially in Asia. When I go somewhere to teach, even or something, some other teachers, like in an Asian city, they might meet me for the first time and say, "Oh, you're Asian."
Wow.
Like they look at on paper the Mary Stephen, they imagine that it's
yeah. It goes both ways in the
Yes, it goes
West and
both
in
ways.
the
Yes,
East.
yes.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about a bit of your collaborations in the East, because it has, like, you have moved to work with directors in Asia, especially in Hong Kong, most notably Anne Hui. I wonder how that working relationship began, and how does it feel to be cutting like a Cantonese language film?
It's great. Well, I mean, we've known each other for a long time. I mean, we got to know each other even like way before, when I was making my first films and she was making her first films. I mean, we never dreamt of working together somehow. And it just happened at a certain time. She decided to call me up and that we started to work on a small section of 7.5, 8.5. I don't remember what it.
Yeah,
That one. And then she asked me for the 2 feature films after that. It worked out just fine. I mean, like it's in a way, I think that Anne likes to work with new people, with different people. She doesn't have a core group that she starts from, like a age 20 to age 60 kind of thing. Right. But I think that she needs the kind of creative spark that she has with new collaborators or different collaborators. And I think that works, in terms of that also, that in spite of the fact that it is in a sort of more industrial model of filmmaking that I am not used to, she was very attentive or protective to on our editing process. It became a kind of independent model. It's not so different than working with Eric Rohmer, because I would come here and have a separate room. We rented a place that I edit always where I sleep. I always say I edit where I sleep.
Wow.
So that saves some money too. So then she would come to where I was staying and look at what I was doing, and it would be just the 2 of us. So it's exactly the same as how I do with Eric Rohmer. So she protected me from that whole big industrial world of filmmaking, which is very appreciative.
Yeah, that's really great. So when you're editing these Hong Kong films, you yourself, you feel like you have to be here with the director editing. You always are here. Okay.
No, I edited a lot of the other young directors' films. Sometimes it's but long distance.
Okay.
That they give me a hard drive. I mean, even the Chinese films, they give me a hard drive, and I would do it in France. And either we do consultations by phone or whatever. Sometimes we can even do even online things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But for Anne, she needed somebody to be here.
Okay.
For Adam Wong too, I was here. Yeah. So sometimes it depends on, it so happens that sometimes I would be around here anyway. So then I would stay a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of these young directors that you mention is the filmmaker Jessey Tsang, right?
Yes.
And I have seen both of her films, and I have a really, I guess, deep connection to them because I live maybe 5 minutes away. I'm not, my family is not from those villages, but I live in one of those village houses very close to Ho Chung. And it also reminded me a little bit about your film and her sort of search for her own heritage and preserving that as well. I wonder if those sort of informed each other, working on those documentaries and your own Palimpsest.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I've never lived in a rural area, but definitely that feeling is the same. You know, that search is the same. And especially that kind of enlarged family type of situation, because the first one, you know, the flowing stories, really, it was I know that I found the structure of this mother, this matriarchal figure of the lady, through looking at her rushes in her first assembly. And I thought that this is sort of the trunk of the tree, and all the branches are the youngsters that went out and became expats, that they were expatriated. And that speaks a lot to me, you know, that situation. And then Winter Chance was really also about, you know, like displaced people. I mean, the people that can't come back home and that kind of stuff. So it's very, it's very far from my own story, but at the same time, the sentiments are there the same. Yeah.
Maybe to round this back to your film Palimpsest, after talking with or working with so many other directors, what were like very crucial lessons that you learned? Because you also have collaborators in this film, in the credits listed. Like I was looking at names like Leung Min Kai, the cinematographer here, Tudu Chi, who is a legendary sound designer, sound mixer. And how did those previous collaborations inform the way that you worked with your film collaborators in this film?
Well, I must say that I was very lucky. Akai I've known for a long time, and he also shot my short film, but I told him that I'm embarrassed to have him on my film, because it's like using the skills of a big master for a tiny little whatever. Yeah. And especially since as I told you, a lot of the contemporary footage we shot that we didn't use because I didn't feel like they fit in with the film, you know, anymore, because of we used mostly archival footage from my father. But he fully understood that. He's very graceful about it. We had, I mean, it's really lovely working with him. And Tutuji is like, wow, a godsend. I mean, I had admired his work for so long, right? And then we got Taiwanese support, and so the money had to be spent there, and so my Taiwanese producer Stefano said, well, you know, either we do color correction or sound. I can ask Tutuji's studio. I said, yes. And what happened was amazing, beyond my wildest dreams. I mean, is that all the footage was silent, and I didn't dare to give Tutuji any directions, right? I just said, okay, this is a film, and I don't know quite what to do with it. I put in some sound suggestions, but, you know, please go ahead and do whatever you feel like. And then they gave me a rough, the first version before I went for the final mix. And everything was folied and designed, and like the details, it's amazing. Yeah, I just feel so fortunate, and it enhances the film so well. And then I mean, it's the whole team. They really completely understood what it was about. Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. Once again, thank you so much for giving me the time to do this interview. Once again, a massive fan of yours, and very, very happy that your film Palimpsest is coming home to Hong Kong. And it's opening wide in Hong Kong in June, right? Yes. So please check it out.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was my interview with director Mary Stephen. Thank you so much to Mary for joining me on the podcast. And also a special thank you to Rainy Tao, Polly Chan from HKIFF, and Felix Tsang from Golden Scene for your help with this interview. I hope you can catch this film soon. It is coming to screens in Hong Kong, I think, later in the summer. If you are interested in more conversations about Eric Rohmer, you can catch our series on him. That is episodes 24 to 26. Thank you for listening to Deep Cut. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. A great way to support us is to leave a review or comment on our episodes directly on Spotify. If you want to chat with us and other fans of Deep Cut, come join our Discord server where we talk about movies, TV, music, and share what we're up to. If you'd like to share a message with us or have business inquiries, feel free to drop us an email at hello@deepcutpod.com. We also have a Patreon if you'd like to support us with a monthly subscription. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters, and a very special thanks to our Patreon Deep Cut Pick supporter, Leah Lai. You can keep up with Deep Cut on Instagram and Letterboxd at DeepCutPod. Click the link in our description or go to deepcutpod.com to find links to everything we've mentioned here. Deep Cut is hosted and produced by us, Wilson Lai, Benjamin Yap, and Eli Sands. Our cover art is designed by Justina Yam, and our theme song is composed by the one and only Eli Sands. I'm Wilson, take care, and we're looking forward to talking about more movies with you next time.